How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? What's the real truth about Citizen Kane?
It'll probably turn out to be a very simple thing.
Hey everybody, hoping you're well. I'm Parker.
And I'm Max.
And welcome back to another episode of Better Than Citizen Kane, the highly subjective show where we look at a movie and ask that titular question. Because when every movie ever made is a reasonable contender for the title of greatest film of all time, you have to wonder, better than Citizen Kane?
This week, Will convinced Parker to drown me so that they can hang out more often. Little does Parker know we're about to head into the city for a life-changing night on the town. But before we can get to that, we must first discuss F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans from 1927.
Now, the first note I have is, when are we going to go for a night on the town that's life-changing? We need that. I've been craving that. When's it happening?
Soon, I hope.
It better, yeah.
I've been feeling a call to the town you live in from where I live. We live in different towns now.
We do, yeah, we do.
I guess we've always lived in different towns, but
yeah,
we used to be a lot
regions.
closer.
We did, yeah.
For almost a year now.
We've grown apart since.
Like 4 hours away. So, anyway, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. We'll plan after the show.
We'll talk.
Yeah, for the first time, Max and Parker will talk off the pod.
I guess.
Yeah. Whatever. Whatever that joke is. Do people know who Will is? Do I need to give context
people
every time
know
I
who
mention
Will is.
Okay.
People, yeah, we're good.
I mean, if this is your first episode, there's lore. Get in line.
His
Learn
name's on the
who Will
masthead.
is. It's on the Have you checked that recently?
I did check that recently.
Oh, is that what we did to Will? Was that the Intro to Social Network episode? Who knows? Who can remember?
Who knows?
I genuinely, Parker, I'm excited for this episode. We've got a good energy coming into this.
Yeah.
Why does it feel like the last few episodes, they were good? It feels like
Sure.
There's a new lease on life on the show.
You know, I think it's a
it is.
lot of different things. But I think mostly it's the fact that like, I think we've got space to just let this one breathe, whereas the last few we were in prep mode for a shoot and then
This is
immediately
true.
coming off a shoot, and so I think we were just like,
This is true.
okay,
And also, we've been recording in the mornings.
yeah, this is nice evening,
And this is just an evening. Neither of us have anything to do after this.
yeah, we're all warmed up.
We're just chilling, and we've had a whole day to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
It's lovely. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Also, spring is here.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, you know, there's kind of this notion of like spring movies. I feel like last year we knocked it out of the park with Daisies. Daisies
Yeah.
is such a spring movie.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, Sunrise makes it into spring movies for me. Even though it's
I can
kind of
see
a
that.
summery movie, I would say it's
Yeah.
either April or August to me. I don't know why.
Yeah. I was gonna like it feels kind of May to me. It's kind of right there on the cusp.
Interesting.
between the
Yeah.
two, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
April, May. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which is interesting because it is a silent black and white film from 1927. Parker, you hadn't seen this before.
I'd never seen this
This
before.
is one of the rare instances in which I've brought a movie to the show that Parker hadn't seen.
One of my favorites. I
that
love
I had
when we get to
seen.
shoot this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. How long has this been on your radar? I imagine for a long time. This is kind of
Very
one
much,
of the most. Would you say totemic? Is that the word you'd use to describe this movie as far
Absolutely.
as silent canon?
Yeah. It is 100% like a very canonical silent film entry, I would say. And surprisingly, like with that said, it's been on my radar for such a long time, but I knew nothing about the plot. Like I knew what it was. I knew a lot, like there were behind the scenes stuff that like I shared on our Frankenstein episode, you know, like about like lead boots and things, but really like didn't know anything about it other than it was, excuse me, that it was Murnau and it was very well regarded. That was kind of it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I saw this for the first time. I'm fairly certain it would have been a film history. So this would have been 2020? I think? Unless I did... It's either...
I looked at your letterboxd. I think it was 2020 because you said that like you watched this and then everybody went home for the pandemic.
Yes, this was like one of the last things we watched right before the pandemic hit, and my film history class went fully online. And this has come up before on the show. It's come up a lot in as I'm trying to fall asleep. My brain likes to remind me of this. because I am ashamed, which is that in that film history class, it was at like 4 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I was commuting, so I would like have just eaten lunch, and it's like midday, and it's like my last class of the day, and I would so regularly fall asleep in that class.
It's prime honk shoe
because
time.
it's prime honk shoe time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My representation in the court, everyone. Parker.
I'm a simple country lawyer.
It was honk shoe time, Your Honor.
It was honk shoe time, Your Honor.
Yeah, good. And also, it was an auditorium. The lights would go down, and it was silent films.
Yeah.
And I would just kind of be like, prime honk shoe time right here. But Sunrise kept my attention. Sunrise is a film that I really connected with. It made me cry.
Oh yeah.
On first watch.
Got me.
It just not you. Oh,
No,
it got you.
Got me.
Oh.
Yeah, it got me.
I thought you just went
Not me.
Not me. It's like, oh.
Oh.
All right. Well, I don't think we need to bring that kind of judgment of emotion to the show, Parker. But genuinely, this one stuck with me to the point that I think I basically added it to my list of favorite movies like then and there. And it just always kind of hovered in the bottom of my favorite movies list. And then 2 months ago, I discovered this tiny little theater in the town that Parker grew up in, which is wild.
Indeed.
And it's near where I live now. And I discovered this tiny little community theater that's currently being brought back to life, resuscitated. They showed this. In February, they were doing silent films each week. And Sunrise was there. So I went and saw Sunrise at this theater just 2 months ago. And it was so funny because as I was walking in, I overheard like the owner who's taking on the project talking to a patron who'd clearly come before and brought a blanket. She was like, I brought a blanket this time. And the owner was like, that's great. We also have space heaters now. So hopefully it's a little warmer this time. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. I go in. It's industrial heaters. Like, looks like a mini jet engine, like something on the back of a pod racer. There's just two of them at the edge of the stage, just facing the audience, just like...
Just like pointed directly at you.
Directly at the audience. It was nuts. And then they turned them off right as the movie was getting started, and I was like, we're on a timer for this before everyone freezes.
Right. Everybody's gonna get chilly.
Everybody's gonna get chilly. But it was genuinely, such a great experience, even with three older women in the back talking through everything and also reading the intertitles. So it wasn't really a silent film in that context, because it would just be like, my wife. And then they'd like giggle to each other, and I was like, this is fascinating. This is a fascinating experience.
What a strange energy.
But had applause at the end. Everyone applauded and stood up. And I was like, props to this 98-year-old movie. I mean, it's easy when you are telling a story that is, I suppose, relatable in some sense or another. Sure. And that was the intention. None of the characters have names. They avoid giving any place names, location names. Specifically,
they open with that inner title where it's like, this could be any city anywhere.
Yes.
Like, it's just...
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's they're creating like a blank narrative or like a parable, basically. It's a parable, right? And I guess that speaks to its standing, I suppose, to an extent. It's also just a really well-made movie. And we will talk about that. But yeah, that's kind of my history with it. I rewatched it for this with a commentary.
Nice.
By a guy who, from what I could understand, was a cinematographer who was a mentee under another guy who maybe worked on this film or not. I couldn't tell.
Fascinating.
So I have some notes from that commentary, but mostly I'm just excited to talk to you about, your experience with this movie.
I love that. Speaking of commentaries, it was something that I've noticed recently that I love. Like, it's always so interesting to me looking at commentaries for any film made like pre-1960, because in the advent of home media, nobody is around who worked on those movies. So they will just grab people that they think, like, I was watching a movie the other day, from like the 50s, and the commentary track was on by default. It was like William Friedkin. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, what do you have to do with this?
William Friedkin, what are you doing in my house? That's really funny. And yeah, I mean, they just kind of get, I feel like Criterion does a good job with that, of like having, oftentimes with these older films that are so important, it's like someone who's studied the film or, you know, is like an expert on something.
Totally.
But it's always just kind of like a whoever, you know, whomever wants to speak on the film, which is fun.
I've never done a commentary with a silent film before. That's fast. I'd be very interested to try that.
Yeah, it was really funny when my dad came downstairs and it was like the end of the movie and just some guy talking over the silent film. Just being like, and there she goes. And as you can see, it's the woman from the city. She's going back. And you know, it's really interesting about this. And I was like, this is a commentary. Like, this isn't just like... It's a really interesting thing. It's just a guy who tells you what's going on the whole time. In a silly sense, not in the accessibility sense, of course.
Right.
Parker. Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Did it meet up to expectation? What were your expectations going in? What did you want it to be? What was it to you?
You know, like, going in, all I really expected out of it and knew about it is that I was like, okay, this is a kind of, as you said, a totemic silent film. And it's also one that Max has highly recommended to me and that he loves. And I was very intrigued going in on those notes, right? And coming out the other side, it delivers. It delivers on that. 100% it does. Like, it is something that, like, the first 15 minutes, like, out loud alone in my room, I was just going like, oh, come on. Like, just at some of the visuals I was seeing.
Yeah.
And just like little creative choices, like, how are you doing this, man? Like, it's, it's something that you and I talk about a lot, where it feels like the true magic trick of cinema is that you're seeing something done tactilely in front of you. Like, it's practical, and like, that's why something as simple as, you know, the overlaid vision they have of the city when he's talking to the woman out by like the reeds is just like, you're just losing your mind over it. And like, it's not photorealistic. It's not up to snuff compared to like Avatar, you know, but it's just, you watch this and like, it gets me so hyped seeing that. I'm just like, wow, like, look at that. Like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing about early cinema, 100%. And so in that regard, like, it's so interesting because, as we've talked about previously, like, I'm a big fan of Murnau's Nosferatu. Like, right. I think it's great. I think it's iconic. And as much as I love it, I was surprised that, like, when I walked away from Sunrise, the first thought I had was like, man, I really need to watch more Murnau movies.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that with Nosferatu, which is so strange.
Yeah. That is interesting. I mean, I think the only other one that is really on my radar is Faust.
Mm-hmm.
But like, outside of that, yeah, like, I mean, it's interesting for me because Sunrise was my first Murnau. I had not seen Nosferatu.
Interesting. Okay.
So going into Nosferatu, I was like, this is really great. But like, you know, Sunrise comes after. It's his first film in America. Basically, William Fox brings him over and is like, make a movie for us. And then he just went back to Germany afterward. Which I think is so funny. I imagined it almost like I was like, why am I getting the vibes of like a crossover episode where like, wow, F.W. Murnau's here for a year. Wow, what do you think he's gonna? Oh, he made one of the greatest silent films of all time. Okay, see ya. You know?
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Okay. It's like, thanks.
Yeah.
Like, it's not one of those things where it's like they kept him and they signed him to a contract. They were just like, this is fun. This is a fun experiment. I don't know if that's genuinely the vibes that they're parting.
Sure.
From what I can tell, he went back to Germany and then they added all the intertitles, which was probably for the best because he despised intertitles. But I think what they do with this one, they're having fun.
They're really cool. Like, that was another thing. The first like 15 minutes that we're going to talk about, they're just like the intertitles got me just like leaning forward. I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, just like jazzed. I mean, it's the thing of like the thing that's so rewarding about revisiting films this early is, one, as much as Citizen Kane receives credit as like, it feels so modern, it's kind of the first of its kind in this sense, it was made this certain way. It's like, yeah, and also the best thing about movies up to a certain point in film history is like they're all just based on what people had done before. So if you can really trace it back to movies like Sunrise and just be like, right, if this is what people were watching, then yeah, of course they felt like it was possible to make Night of the Hunter and Citizen Kane, and those are two American examples, but like genuinely it's like this is where it comes from. It starts here. And even Sunrise, it's like, I mean, obviously it starts in the 1890s, but Sunrise feels like such a movie where it's like, yeah, I mean, if I'd seen that when I was like, 15 or 20 in like 1927, I would have been like, I got to make this right now. Like, I got to get out. I got to start doing this, because it is such a testament to the power of visual storytelling. I mean,
totally.
Something that I wish I'd taken note of his name, the man who did the commentary on my, Fox Classics, whatever. Blu-ray from my local library, support your local library. He mentions, it's funny how often in the first 15 minutes, he's like, you really get the sense that Murnau's pulling from, and also the cinematographer, I believe his name is Carl Struess. He's like, you really get a sense of how much they're pulling from the Dutch masters' paintings, and just like how often he's like, this one too feels really a lot like the Dutch masters. And Parker, it's me, so of course anytime anyone repeats something more than a few times, I just go, all right, we get it. But at the same time, I was like, he's right.
Yeah.
This looks like paintings. Like composition in this film is just going nuts.
Totally.
I feel. Yeah. Jazzed about filmmaking. I feel. So that's that experience. I know you also have some hurdles that you lightly alluded to me.
We'll get to them.
We'll get to them. I think I have an idea of what they are.
Yeah, it's like it is entirely like, and that's why cards on the table. Like, I gave this 4 stars out of 5. Like, the predominant feeling walking away from this was like, wow, filmmaking's rad as hell. Like, isn't that so great?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've got some issues, I've got some hurdles, but we'll get to those.
Yeah. Wonderful. Anything else we want to? Well, why talk about this in conversation with Kane? It's just another totemic film. I mean, it's Sunrise. I feel like it's in conversations all the time of kind of some of the greatest of all time. Off the top of your head, I don't think this is in like a narrative. I don't think is this on like the Letterboxd 250 for narrative?
I don't think so. Let me double check, because I noticed, like, I was keeping an eye on that, and I watched a lot of movies this weekend, so it's all blurring together. I don't think it is.
This guy watches movies. Wow.
I know. No, it isn't. It's not in there.
Okay. Is it? Well, you know what? I actually have the Wikipedia page here. Let's see what other sort of things it has going for it here. It won the Academy Award for Unique and Artistic Picture at the first Academy Awards in 1929, so 2 years after its release. Janet Gaynor won the first Academy. She won the first Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role. In 3 films. It was this and 2 others. Yes. And that was the only time this ever happened where it was like a collective body of work for the year. Right, because again, it's 29, so they're kind of going back and being like, also these other films.
Yeah.
It's widely considered a masterpiece and one of the greatest films ever made. Many have called it the greatest film of the silent era. In 1989, it was one of the first 25 films selected by the U.S. Library of Congress for preservation in the film registry. The Academy Film Archive preserved Sunrise in 2004. The 2007 update of the AFI's list of the 100 greatest American films ranked it number 82.
Interesting.
And the British Film Institute's 2012 Sight and Sound named it the 5th best film in the history of motion pictures.
Wow.
At least the critics poll did, whereas directors named it 22nd.
Okay, interesting.
So,
was that you said the 2012 Sight and Sound?
That's the 2012 one.
Any word on the most recent?
Well, Parker, let me take a look.
Yeah, go fishing. Go find out.
In the meantime,
I'll stall. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just it's fascinating to me looking at. There are shots in this that I had seen I did not know were Sunrise. There were like 3 or 4 different shots that I had seen constantly, like referenced and showing up in montages and compilations. and I just hadn't connected that they were from this, and that was very surprising to me. Like, oh, that's where this is from. Okay, like specifically, like the main one that I thought of is there's a shot where he's sitting on the bed and there's like the superimposed like ghost of the woman of the city like running her hands down, and like I'd seen that shot before several different times and I didn't realize it was from this.
Yeah. This is at number 11 from the critics of the top 20 greatest films of all time. It's number 11 now. Just below Singin' in the Rain at number 10, and just above The Godfather at number 12.
Okay, nice.
So not too shabby.
Not shabby at all.
I mean, it does seem that it dropped 6 places, but you know what? That's just fine. That's the critics' poll. Directors,
I mean, I think we can go operate off of
We're just
critics.
going to operate off the critics.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That's
it's nice that it's on there.
That's what we've always done, and we will continue to do so. Okay, great. Sunrise.
Yeah.
We open. No, I'm just kidding.
My God.
Silent, truly silent. Not even the score. The score done by Hugo. What was his name? It was an original score, because this is right on the verge. This is right on the verge of sound.
Yeah.
Sync sound.
It's a good score. Like, I genuinely, that was something I noticed. I was like, oh, I do like this.
Hugo Reisenfeld is his name.
Reisenfeld.
He did the original score. There was another one done, I believe in the 80s or 90s, but I'm pretty sure that the one that we both would have seen was from Reisenfeld. So,
yeah.
Sunrise. Again, like you said, opens with the title card of like, this could happen anywhere, at any time.
Yeah.
I don't know if everything could specifically happen anywhere at any time, but I see your point.
I get what you're alluding to.
I mean, the first thing in this is the vacation montage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
which just kind of show up and slap you around in the face. It's just like, hey, wake up!
Yeah. Model trains paired with live footage of people. There's that great fade from, or rather dissolve from the image, the still image to the train, and then the train blows steam and departs. That's just a model.
Yeah. I was just barely looking up to see they are exactly the same year. Metropolis is also 27, and like that was immediately I was like, oh, okay, well, German directors are having a good time.
Yeah, Fritz Lang, F.W. Murnau, they're just going nuts with mini cities. You know, they love it, and so do I.
Big fan.
I love the split shot of the people on the beach and the boat passing by. It's kind of a miracle of just film editing and just kind of like compositing and matte. You know, it's really great. And then we arrive on the woman from the city who's hanging out in a lakeside town. She's been there for several weeks. After dark, she heads out. We see, a couple kind of gossiping, which again, the thing that's always so impressive about silent film is that it's just, again, and this was my review for this watch, was just like, yeah, dialogue isn't necessary. Speaking isn't necessary. Like, I understand. I know. Please don't tell anyone that. Like, if everyone could just continue to keep not thinking that would be great for me, someone who would like to write dialogue for my job. Anyway, she goes to see the man at his farmhouse. I mean, again, I wish I could just be like, frame by frame, be like,
yeah. And
here's what's really amazing about this. But there's this great long kind of tracking shot following her through the village. They built this village on Lake, what was it called? Lake Arrowhead. They just built this whole thing. Sure. They go across. He comes out. What's this actor's name? George O'Brien? Is that who it is? I believe that's
sounds familiar.
It does, doesn't it? Yes, George O'Brien. He comes out, like Parker alluded to today, and also on our Frankenstein episode, lead boots. He's got lead in he's got lead weights in his shoes to just weigh down his walking. Just a guilty conscience, just conveyed through physicality. One of the notes that Murnau gave him was, you have to learn to act from behind, or act from the back, considering how often he was going to be shot from behind.
Yeah.
Which I just thought was kind of interesting, good little note. She whistles to get his attention. He waves her away, and she walks away. But he goes out anyway. He goes out. We get some funny little flashbacks of there's people, like people who help in the house. Would you say maids of some kind? Yeah, who are like, oh, they used to be such a young, happy couple, and we get a nice shot of them running together in the trees. And then the people from the city came and they started stripping the farm, and then we see he's losing livestock to collectors and such, kind of setting up. They used to be happy, now they're not. The financial woes of life as an adult have gotten to them. He goes out. Janet Gaynor plays the woman. Parker, what do you think of her hair? What do you think of her hair?
It's just it's a little tight. It's a little slick.
Commentary,
just a touch.
Commentary track mentions how it's one of the most laughed at things about the movie, if not the most. It's just like, why is she wearing a shower cap? Like, why is her wig
plastered to her
It's a
head.
Wig that she's wearing.
Yeah.
She has pretty famous kind of wavy hair. And I imagine it's just so that they just remove any sexuality from her.
Yeah, they want her to be as mousy as possible.
As mousy as possible, as Puritan as possible, potentially. Meanwhile, the man has gone out, and is this one of the things that also made you lose your goddamn mind?
Oh yeah. Oh, this whole scene.
Why don't you break this scene down for everybody at home?
So like he comes, and the first thing I want to point out, which is so interesting, of like, you hear it talked about a lot, but like, unless you go digging, it's kind of an artifact. But I do love that, like, it is so starkly that brunettes used to be evil. Like, that was what it was in films. It's like, the woman is blonde and pure, and not like virginal is obviously not the right word because she's married and they have a kid, but like, she, again, puritanical, right?
Yes.
Whereas the woman from the city is dark and mysterious and alluring, and she has very dark hair. Yeah. And it's funny to me that like you hear that talked about, but seeing it like one-to-one like this is so like, oh, there it is. There's that. Yep. But they go and they're on like the bank of the lake, in amongst like the reeds.
Yeah, kind of a marshland kind of vibe.
A marshy area. And they're in each other's arms and, kissing and embracing and all of these things. And she starts talking. She's like, hey, you should sell your farm and come with me to the city. It's like, well, what about my wife? And there's this freaking incredible intertitle that I love so much. Yeah. It comes on screen and it says, well, and I'm not, the exact phrasing is going to be off, but it's something along the lines of like, well, what if she were to, and the sentence isn't finished.
Yep.
And then it says, drown. And then when that fades in as the final word, and then in the middle point of the screen, like the words like melt, like they just like droop and turn to water.
Yeah.
It's so, I've never seen an intertitle do that, and I was like, that's so cool.
It's really rad. I mean, from the beginning, this whole scene, because it's a tracking shot, it's like following behind him. We're following him, but you think it's a dolly at first, but then he steps over a fence and the camera just floats through it because it is basically bolted from above on like basically an arm, and they're just bringing it in through the set. But because they do that same trick later in the movie, and I was watching it and like thinking about it, I was like, okay, where is the track? Because I can see the ground. Yeah, I love it when he steps back in line with the camera, and then he clearly just stops, and the camera takes on his POV as it pushes through the bushes and everything, like just smooth as butter. As he arrives to her, and then you have, that incredible title, the moon and the water behind them. Like, it's clearly like a painting in the background with the moon, but then there's like water that's moving. Like, they're making the shimmering of the lake. It just looks so good. And they're conspiring, and she's like, you could push her over. And we see like him imagining pushing her off the boat. Continue, Parker.
Yeah, very like nightmare imagery. Like there's something so off-putting and surreal about just that image of like immediately like it fades from that intertitle about drowning to that shot that you're talking about, like him pushing her over and the splash. Like you watch it and you can see that like I can't even quite figure it out because obviously like the splash is another element. Like it's composited on top, but then like she sinks. So I'm like, how did you shoot this? Like what is this? I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And then he is really, taken aback by this and like starts strangling this woman for a second. And
He
then
does.
she pulls him into a kiss, and then he stops. And
Yeah.
then she starts telling him more about the city and
My
the
favorite
sky.
thing is, sorry, my
Please,
favorite
please.
my favorite thing is that he says, "Can my wife come?" Like he's literally like, "Wait, so can my wife?"
Can my wife come with?
She's like, "We've been over this." No.
We've talked
Anyway,
about
you were
this.
just getting to like the next big thing.
But just
which
like
is-
they're talking about it, and then suddenly the sky where the moon is, like the horizon line upward, suddenly becomes this vision, and they're both looking at it, which is so great. Like it's as if they're watching it together, and you see this cacophony of images of just like the most expressionist city you've ever seen. Like even like it marries the art design from Metropolis with the German expressionism of like Caligari.
Yeah.
Like everything in that city is scant and diagonal and askew, and it's so artistically interesting to look at.
It's loud. It gets across like the bustle of everything and kind of the overwhelming nature of the city. It looks so fun. Like every time I watch this movie, I'm kind of like, I want to live in the city again. I kind of
gotta go live in the city.
It's incredible. I imagine for it could be composite. We're going to talk about this. There's another sequence in here that I really want to talk about. It might be what's that called again?
Whoa. He's got notes, folks.
A multiple exposure shot. I'm wondering if it's they're looking at black and then they just, do that.
Yeah, that could be the case.
We'll talk about that potentially being used later in the film as well. But it's it's glorious. It's amazing.
Incredible.
In place of, if your actor cannot describe how great the city's going to be, we're just going to show it to you because this is what they're engaging in together. And then we get this great shot of like, it's the wife back at the house kind of being like forlorn about all this. And then when we return to the man and the woman from the city, we first see their tracks in mud, and we just see like it's almost like they're sinking into this together, like they're getting dirty almost, right?
Yeah.
And then she's picking bulrushes, and she's like, if you have these on the boat when it capsizes, you can stay afloat, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the burden that is given to him.
Totally.
Did I miss anything in that scene?
I don't think so. It does make me laugh just from like, a modern perspective, that whole sequence of like, here's the bulrushes. I'm like, does he not know how to swim? Like, you flip the boat. Like, that's not a death sentence. Like, I think, honestly, I think she'll probably be okay too. I think she might just like take a spill.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost as if like, they're providing the solution to a problem that doesn't exist yet, which is what we know the ending of the movie to be, where they are required. But it is kind of funny that she's like, and then you'll stay afloat. And he's like, I know how to swim.
I have a bunch of medals back in my house. I was top of my class, but sure, whatever. But yes, that's kind of the major beats of the sequence.
Yeah, he brings the bulrushes home, puts them in the barn. Horse jump scare. Yeah, I love the moment in the score mimicking the horse. I'm just always a sucker for that.
It's really good.
He goes in. He goes to bed feeling terrible.
Yeah, feels real bad. He has another, because he has like another vision of him pushing her in, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Also, if you notice, the sets are very expressionistic of like, she's in her bed at the front with the window light coming in, and then he has to like cross down this sloped floor.
Yeah, there's like a ramp coming in through. I was like, what is the makeup of this room?
A sketch in which people are living in a German expressionist house and they're like, this sucks.
I can't find a right angle.
How do I get to the door? But then, of course, in the morning, we see her, feeding the chickens out front, and we get the ghost shot, which just always blows me away.
It's so cool.
And then it goes into... Doesn't it transform into them kissing behind him as well? And that's even like pushed in closer and bigger.
It's like she's behind him, like running her hands down his chest. Then another one of her is like kneeling in front of him and like laying her head on his knee. And then like behind him is like a giant version of her face and like profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just he's going nuts, man. He's going nuts.
He's
with
going
these composites,
crazy,
and it looks so good. He feels really awful. He goes to his wife. He's like, we're gonna go out.
Yeah.
We're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go get on the boat.
Yep.
She's stoked.
Yeah, she's thrilled.
I think it's such a funny, just little. I don't know what it is or if they meant it this way, but it's funny that in the intertitle, when she's giving their kid to the maid, she's like, "We're going on a trip on the boat across the lake, and I won't be back for quite a while." And I'm like, "How long are you? What do you mean? Like,
what is this trip?"
Like, I know that it's like a day trip.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, but it is just funny of like, again, in my mind, I'm like, quite a while. I feel like nowadays means like
a week or
be
two.
gone for like a while.
Yeah. Totally.
But they get all ready. They get out on the boat. He's like a golem. Like the way that he's like moving his shoulders and just kind of
his physicality is crazy in this first half. Like it's something I'm going to come back to later of like, it is for me personally, it is like 95% a blessing and 5% a curse that like Murnau is a great horror director. Yeah. And like this first like quarter is just a horror movie.
It is.
Like with
it's
the jump scares,
inducing.
with his acting, like it is, you're just anxiety inducing. They get down to the boat. The dog's losing its mind because the dog knows that something's up, right?
Yeah, the dog comes out and swims after them. They have to take it back. But the thing that blows me away with this is like the camera is on a barge. Yeah. That's pulling the boat. But it's so steady. It just is like, it blows me away.
Totally.
Like, how are you doing that? Like,
yeah, it's, and again, like there's a shot later with that where like they dock the boat again. And I was thinking about that because I was just watching the way the camera was like basically snorri cammed to the boat. I'm like, how are they doing that? Like what? Yeah. And immediate, like that makes sense that they're on a barge and it's kind of pushing and pulling it along. But yeah, it's just one of those things of, again, you forget about it until you turn your film brain on and think, well, where is the camera? And how is the camera on the water with them?
Yeah, exactly.
But with the thing with the dog, I fully thought, I 100% thought when he comes back on the boat after putting the dog away, I thought we were going to get an insert of the dog like strangled. Like I thought he killed, I was convinced he killed the dog.
Do we see it when he comes back at the end of the film? Maybe he did.
I don't know. I don't know.
But I love the choice to stay on Gaynor for that.
It's
where
really
like
good.
We're
it's
just
really,
staying
really
with her
good.
as she like is feeling more uncertain about this trip. Like she
goes off. Like there's like two moments in that like one shot where she goes to go after him and then she stops herself and stays in the boat. Yeah. And it's just she's incredible.
I also love that like we don't see the horizon of the lake. We just see the water kind of rippling around her. Like it's pointed down. It almost is just like she's already in the water. Like
there's nowhere to go.
In that moment, she's just in the water, and that's where she is. There's nowhere to go. Exactly. He comes back. They set off again.
Yeah.
Is this one of the things that you have a problem with?
Okay, so let's get this out of the way now. I was going to save it for later, but I think it makes sense here. So, spoilers for the rest of the movie coming up. They fall back in love. That's the point of the movie, right? Like, they go to the city, they have a great time. You know me. I am a sentimental sap. I love watching people be in love so much. Yeah. And when it works. And like the stuff later in the movie where they're having a good time is so charming and so heartfelt and works so well. However, Murnau is such a good horror director that the entire time, all I can think about is this scene. And it gets stuck in my craw because I timed it out afterwards because like I want to know. Yeah. From that moment, so like what happens is they get out in the middle of in the lake and he stops rowing and she kind of looks at her, she's like, well, what are you doing? Like, why are we stopping? And he does the fucking Kubrick stare. He does. Like he like slowly raises his head and it's just brow.
It is levels of like Anthony Perkins in Psycho. Like it is that level of like menace in the eyes.
100%. And he like rises up slowly and his shoulders are still hunched
like Frankenstein's monster.
Like Frankenstein's monster. And like you were talking about, he's filmed entirely from the back. We're watching Gaynor's perspective, like her reaction.
She's terrified.
And just, it dawns on her what's happening. And she like shrinks backwards.
She cowers.
She gets so small. She gets so tiny. And is just, she gets scared and then she pleads with him. Like she gets very soft and like puts her hands and goes like, please. And he like, it just focuses again from her POV. Like it's his knees and his hands and his hands are like grasping towards her. And then you hear like the chime of like a buoy bell.
Yeah.
And he throws his arms over his head, his eyes, and he's suddenly like broken out of the spell or whatever, right? That scene is so effective. And then 12 minutes later in the runtime is when the forgiveness scene happens.
Which I think is the right choice in a sense, in that we need time for her to forgive him. Because if she just immediately was like, no, it's fine.
Right.
But it also has the adverse thing. It's a double-edged sword, right? As most swords are. Like, all right. But genuinely, because we need time for her to forgive him, and yet also her being a real person who can't bounce back from this makes him worse. It makes us less quick to forgive him as well, right?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, that's the stuff that works for me. I wish it was longer. Like, where I'm at with it is that I'm like, okay, look, I have no problem redeeming characters, right? But like, that's the entire runtime of A Christmas Carol. Like, you have to give it time to get to that point. And because Murnau is so good with the horror elements, 12 minutes is not enough for me. 12 minutes, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean he tried to strangle you? Like, what do you
12 minutes ago.
12 minutes ago, right? And that's the thing. Like, that is, when I think about it, is like, all of the stuff that comes after is so nice and so lovely. And I think on a second watch, I'll like it more.
Yeah.
It's just, the first 30 minutes are so effective as dread-inducing and horrifying that it was just hanging over my head as a first-time viewer the whole rest of the time.
Yeah.
So even when they're having a good time, I'm still thinking like, yeah, but he's a violent piece of shit, and he gets violent with other people repeatedly through the rest of the movie.
Primarily the only other woman in the film. And I mean also that man at the barbershop. Right. I will say this as well, which is, again, this is from what I understand, this is a common point made in the letterbox reviews on this film from people of our generation, kind of closer to our ages, just kind of like, God damn, he was going to kill you. And you're like, no, it's fine.
He cried about it. And I think
the thing that's hard about Sunrise is that it is a specific story, and yet it's also an expressionistic parable. Right. In which, if this is just a standing in of like being so done with a relationship that you want it to be over, if you view it as just a metaphor, it works a little easier. It's a little easier to swallow. Totally. But the hard part is that, again, like you're saying, Murnau is such a good horror director, and they have elected to do this very specific story of attempting to murder your wife that almost makes it less relatable. Right. Especially with the outset being, this could happen anywhere at any time. And I go, sure, relationship problems happen. I don't know if every man or every person in a relationship has been like, I could kill the person I'm married to. Right. But again, if you view it as just the metaphor of like, oh, I could kill you, like just kind of, which I feel like what used to be a lot more common of a sentiment before woke.
Before woke.
Oh no, wait, is it clear that I'm kidding? Is it clear that I'm using it ironically? Oh no. Oh, I have to be careful. I'm a white man with a podcast. No. I have to be careful. Anyway, we made it almost 60 episodes in before we used the term woke, probably.
But you are right though. Like I totally see what you're saying, and like that's where like it's a 4-star movie for me, and not like much lower, is because I can suspend that. It's just
difficult.
It's difficult, especially because like watching the movie, and I was thinking about this near the end, where I was like, I think it was enough for me just seeing her cry over the dinner by herself. Like the conflict I think could have been enough just that she knows he's being unfaithful. Right. And like that's the confrontation, and that's the hurdle to get over, is like they have, they're out on the boat, something happens, and it just comes to blows. And she's like, look, I know. Like, you think you're being slick, and you're not. Like, I know.
Right.
And then everything else kind of falls into place a bit better.
And yet also, is that an easier, or rather, okay, is it more difficult to communicate that in a silent film almost purely visually than it is an attempted murder?
Yeah,
murder is
great
something
point.
that can be communicated visually, whereas the point you're making is great, but it's also incredibly nuanced.
It's very verbal.
And it's a lot harder to get that across, I imagine. Yeah. So again, it's kind of like these. Maybe it's a thing of like big strokes. You need something big that is communicable, right?
Yeah, and that makes that's a really great point, I think. No, go finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think you're right. I just am also like, again, I don't know if that's what was on their mind, but I think it is a function of the movie that it's like, we kind of need broad strokes to get this across. We need him to attempt to kill her to get this emotion across, in the same way that we need them to literally go to a chapel and basically renew their vows in order to get this across as expressionistically and as broadly as we can for everyone.
Yeah. And that's the balancing act that I run into as a viewer,
of
right?
Course.
Is that, like, on one hand, absolutely, we have to take into account that in 2 years, this film will be 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
And the point of, we've talked about this on the podcast before, of like, one of the gifts of film is that it is a snapshot into the past, even when it is something as grand and fabulistic as this. We see, like, there's a really great quote. There's a documentary all about the National Film Registry called These Amazing Shadows. And there's a guy on there, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says something along the lines. He's like, films are there are family albums. We go back and we see how did men treat women? How did women treat men? What did love look like? What were the lies we told to each other? How did society work? Like, it's a snapshot back.
Right.
And so in that context, like, absolutely, like, I can hold space for the film and realize that it's like, yeah, like you said, the broad generalistic term of, oh man, I could just kill you right now, right? Like, is a term that is around, is used in the vernacular. Relationship dynamics are very different back then. And so you take that with a big old grain of salt.
Yeah.
And the other half of it that I balance as a viewer, not even a modern viewer, just as like my own personal preference, is that, like we talked about on other, romantic films, is that for a romantic film to be successful, I need to fall in love with both of these people, right? Like, I need to be rooting for these guys.
At the Love and Basketball episode.
Exactly.
A few weeks ago.
And once again, I'm sitting there thinking the same thing of, just add this to the catalog of, like, girl, you could be doing so much better. Like, but.
And yet, I would say in Sunrise, it was probably a lot harder for woman
very much
to find better.
Totally. And so that's the thing, is that, like, that's the balancing act I was dealing with as I was watching. It's like, okay, this is 100 years old. And also, the core conceit of this movie is a romance, right? Like, it is a love story. And so if I'm going to be on board with that love story, like, I want to learn to love I don't have to love them both at the beginning. When Harry Met Sally is a great example. Like, I don't love Harry at the beginning. No. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But he grows and he changes and he learns.
But if Harry had tried to kill Sally,
I don't think the movie would work. Quite frankly.
Harry, don't you see? That's why I hate you go and say things like that. He tried to kill you 40 minutes ago. He tried to
kill you. What are you talking about? And that's the thing, is like, it gives the man a lot of very charming moments in the city that we'll get to, that are a lot of fun, that endear me to him. It's just, again, the truncated runtime of the thing. I'm just like, yeah, and that was 20 minutes ago that he was scary Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, that's real. I feel that. I'm so curious about silent romances now that you bring it up, of like talking about how a romance film works. It is an interesting challenge to portray romance in a silent film capacity.
Totally.
I'm reminded, have you seen Lonesome? I think it's from 30-something, maybe?
I believe so, like once.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I remember the romance in that working for me. I remember the main thing not working for me in that movie being that it was early attempts at sound. So they but like they couldn't really do anything with it. So like they're on a beach in real life and you're like, this is so charming. And then it like cuts to soundstage of a beach and she has to sit perfectly still and not move and be like, I'm talking now. And you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting though. silent romance is interesting.
To your point though, like it's interesting that you bring that up because I was thinking about a little bit of that while I was watching, of like a silent romance that I think does land a lot better for me is the one in City Lights, which we covered,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
It's like,
yeah.
but that by the nature of the characters is much more like gentle,
Right.
which
Well,
I
and
think
also
works better.
the broad strokes there, the broad strokes are comedic.
Yeah.
Right, where it's like the romance can be gentler because the broad strokes of City Lights is comedy,
Right.
in a sense. Whereas the broad strokes of Sunrise is so interesting because it's not a comedy, it's not horror, and if you really think about it, a lot of silent films tended to be, at least the ones that have stuck with us as a culture, tend to be the comedies and the horror films. And so Sunrise is kind of interesting in that way, where, and I'm speaking generally, if there's one I'm forgetting, please stop me. Like, obviously Metropolis isn't either.
Sure.
But it
Metropolis
is still,
has horror roots.
and it's still a genre of sorts. And this is such an interesting one where it's like Fable is its genre almost.
Right. And like it's very much, it's melodrama, like in the purest like theatrical stage sense, right? Which is where the film gets a pass for me in a lot of ways, of like literally like in the theatrical tradition of melodrama, that is quite literally a space where like the mustache twirling villain comes on stage, the piano player does dun 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 dun, and the audience is asked to boo.
The
like
theme
that is
to
what
Dragnet?
Yeah, crazy, right?
That's where the theme to Dragnet started.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Did you not see the flashing sign at the beginning of every Dragnet episode that says "boo"?
Oh,
wow. That's
it was
what that
really
is.
ahead of its time. That's why
You thought that was a jump scare. You thought that was a ghost, but no.
I'm like, Dragnet's main genre, horror.
Horror. but like that's what like melodrama as a theatrical tradition is quite literally like trading on the broadest types of stereotypical characters, right? So that's it, to your point, like it does make a lot of sense that you're right. City Lights, its broad strokes are comedy, and Sunrise's broad strokes are melodrama, which allows for bigger moments, and like you just kind of do go with it. But
is also all that said, still valid to, as a person, go, doesn't work for me.
Sure.
This wasn't me arguing for you.
No, I know, but like, but you bring up a lot of very good points about it, totally, and
As
like
do
that
you.
is, thank you, and like that is truly like why it lands 4 for me and not a lot lower, because, like I said in my review, like the filmmaking's a 5, the initial conceit's like a 3, and then by the end I landed like a very solid 4, where I'm like, no, like. I love, and we'll get to all the stuff that I love in the city, but like that is the major hurdle that I had with the film, but can put it aside in context of when it was made, what kind of genre it is playing around with, and like you said, the very like fabulistic nature of the whole thing.
Right.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's my aside.
Yeah. So tries to get her, shields his eyes, and is kind of like ashamed.
Yep.
And then he just rows like crazy.
Dude is like looking to break the Olympic record.
That's what
He's
happens
going
when you
nuts.
lock in, I guess.
Yeah, he rose.
I have to make up for the Dragnet reference, the extended Dragnet reference, by using modern slang, if you don't mind.
Right. Yep.
He locked in. Anyway, whatever. They go super fast. They arrive to the other shore. She books it.
Yeah, she's out.
He comes after her. She gets on the trolley as it arrives, and as it's pulling away, he manages to just catch it. Everything that you've said, absolutely fair. I will say, this extended sequence of him trying to apologize to her without intertitles, I think the lack of intertitles is a really great choice.
Totally.
I think that it's, again, if it wasn't that he just tried to kill her, if I viewed this as just like he's trying to genuinely, sincerely apologize for something, this scene is fantastic because
super effective.
Yeah, super effective. He did try to kill her, and she knows that. It's not even like he was just ruminating on it. He intentionally stepped forward to do it. It's really long on the trolley. They arrive in the city. She is hiding her face from him. She cannot bear to look at him, and he is struggling. He tries to get her a little flower.
Buys her bread.
Yes.
Buys her little sweet treats.
Buys her little sweet treats. Not working.
Yeah.
The church, Parker.
Yeah. So they walk out of the sweet shop, and they hear wedding bells, and they see a couple heading into the chapel, and they both like in like a hypnotic like trance, like they're just drawn to it, the both of them, which is very interesting. But yeah, they go in, and this wedding ceremony is going on, and they sit in kind of one of the back rows, and now we get the intertitles coming back in, where we're hearing the vows being exchanged, and specifically the priest, the officiant, turning to the man and being like, do you promise to take care of her? Like, do you promise to love her and tend to her and like do everything you can to protect her?
Yeah.
And the dude's like, I do. And the man breaks down.
Yeah.
He just like, I think he says like, I do as well, right? Like he says something like that and just collapses into her lap and just is weeping, just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And, you know, like the other piece of this that we won't get into super on Mike, but just the little stray piece I'll toss in is like, as somebody who's been in, you know, abusive relationships where somebody who does something bad suddenly is very contrite and cries about it. And it's like, why are you crying? You did the bad thing. That's part of my little notch against this movie. It's like, you don't get to cry, man. You don't get to. I'm sorry. Pull it together. You tried to murder your wife.
But Parker, the light comes through the window in the chapel. It's beautiful.
Was
that a painting on a wall, or was that real? We don't know.
We don't know.
What do you think? Do you think it was
gorgeous?
What do you think it was a light effect painted on the set, or do you think it was real?
Knowing Murnau, I think it's painted. I think it is an artificial light beam.
It's debated. I think it's somewhere in between. I think the top part of it is, but I think there is maybe light because they do. But you don't know because they step into light, but you don't know where that light is really.
Totally.
Anyway,
it's interesting.
Really interesting. I love there's a little gag here that cracks me up of everyone getting up because they think the bride and groom are coming out, and then it's the man and the woman, our man and woman coming out. When was the first time they walked through traffic? Was that earlier?
He like chases. They get off the trolley and he chases her through traffic, and they almost get run over a couple times.
Yes. Okay. They come out of the chapel. They're stepping on each step in unison together.
Yeah.
They walk into traffic. Is this one of the shots that you'd seen before and not realized it was from Sunrise? I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Because even for me, I feel like I'd seen that by the time I was seeing this movie.
Totally.
This is a technical marvel, this shot. Because initially you go, oh, that's kind of hokey. It looks kind of bad for the time. But then you go, no, because they're doing something very intentionally, which is they're walking forward and there are cars passing between them and the camera that have been like composited, like matted in.
Yeah.
And they're walking to the city and you go, oh, is that rear projection? And the argument, did you assume it was rear projection in front of them? What did you think it was?
Like, what I like, it seemed like there is a handoff of there is the shot that you're talking about them walking. Like, you can very clearly see, and I say clearly, like, it's just things that I look for a lot. Like, it's a very good trick, but like the cars passing in front, like there's like a white outline on the edge of the windows, right? Like, and they've kind of didn't use it exactly.
Those are cutouts that have been added in.
Totally.
But the scenery that they're walking into that goes from being the traffic parting around them. It becomes flowers in a field. And then it changes back.
Right.
How do you think they did
that? Looking at it, I had assumed that like anything that wasn't the city, like the flowers in the field and stuff, is rear projection. And then I don't know where the handoff happens, but at some point the screen is removed and all of the stuff behind them is actually there.
Yeah. I always thought it was rear projection. The man who did the commentary is like, I don't think it is. He argues that what it is it's a multiple exposure shot. So they're walking, there's a large, black plate basically in front of them as they're walking. And then they just exposed onto that the city and then the flower field. And then they cut back to that's been removed and they are back in the real city again.
Yeah.
I love that it's a little hard to parse.
Yeah, it's a magic trick.
It's a magic trick, and I love that. Just a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
They stop all the traffic. But also before that, just a great visual metaphor of like the traffic is parting around them. They're in their own world. Nothing can touch them at this moment, and then they stop all the traffic and they come up and they're like, "Hey, get out of here!" They leave. Then we have kind of a number of set pieces here. We have 3 set pieces after this, right? We have the barber shop.
Yep.
Right? Thoughts on the barber shop?
Very Chaplin-esque.
It's very modern
feels
times.
like it feels modern times. It feels like Buster Keaton to me in a lot of big ways.
Yeah. My favorite Chaplin film, Buster Keaton. No. Different guys. And I know that because I went to college. That's not why I know. I like that he goes to get his hair cut. I also like that they start poking at Janet Gaynor's wig, and she's like, "No," and I'm like, "Funny little joke," because we know that's a wig.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's fine. He gets his hair cut. There's the manicurist who looks like the woman from the city. Another evil brunette.
It's you and I. We're causing all the problems in the world.
Yeah, it's us. We're harlots who pull every good person away from their rightful spouse.
It's so true. It's so true.
And that's so true.
And that's so true of us.
Meanwhile, she's sitting watching this. She kind of gets nervous. I like that she gets a little nervous. I like that when he sees the man next to her, and this man is just, he's putting the moves on her.
Yeah.
And it's like, they just got their vows renewed, dumbass. But I like that they're both still like early in this stage of they're like, where are we at actually? Like, this is like, will we leave the other person? Like, I like that they're kind of like, wait, so where are we though?
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that. I noticed it on this watch. The reason I was always fascinated why they set up specifically the hot towel machine. And it's because she like touches it with her arm and then has
stuck
to
against and then
and then he looks right as she has to like turn into the man, the other man, and I'm like, oh, I just never caught why that was. I hadn't caught that before. Love that hot towel machine though. Just a little orb on a stick, fun.
Bring those back.
Maybe they're still.
I want
out
one
there.
for my apartment.
Okay, Christmas gift guaranteed.
Thank God.
Thank God. All right. Parker's really excited about that. Now I have to actually do that.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no. Anyway, barbershop, he comes over, he emasculates the man by cutting the flower off his pocket or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. They leave, they go to have their photos taken.
Okay, so this is my favorite thing about film history, especially early film history, is like the scale at which we observe time makes no sense. And this more than anything else, the photographer is in It's a Wonderful Life. Like, he has lines.
Oh.
Like, there's the part where George is drunk and he smashes his car into somebody's tree. The dude's like, my grandfather planted this tree. Like, where are you going? You're drunk. It's that. He's the photographer in this movie.
Whoa. Sorry, I just peeked my mic. I was so excited.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, exactly.
That's wild.
Again, film history. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. You just always assume that everyone from a silent film is dead.
Yeah, truly.
By the time that it's the late 40s,
well, honestly,
like
it's one of those things where I think part of that is that the major stars of the silent era kind of disappeared.
They did,
like,
yeah.
Especially like the big names, like, Harold Lloyd, Chaplin, and Keaton. All like they're not around making movies a ton in like the 50s, and so it's like, oh yeah, like they're not here anymore.
Well, and then you have like all the actresses who were just deemed they couldn't do it anymore. They couldn't make the jump to sound. And then there's also the thing of like a lot of those like mid-century directors, like the greats of all time, got their start in silence, but their sound careers just overshadowed them completely. So it doesn't even feel like you have like famous silent film directors. Like, I always forget that Metropolis is made by Fritz Lang, because to me I go, well, Fritz Lang's the director of M. He's the director of these later movies. And I go, oh, but he's also, of course, that's the same guy.
My students I've taught in the past are always shocked when they find out that Hitchcock has silent films.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Earlier this year, The Lodger is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting. Like, again,
Mm-hmm.
the bridge from the 20s to the 40s feels like
It feels
a
massive.
century in and of itself because how quickly technology advanced.
Totally.
But really, it's the difference between, I suppose, the 2000s and now.
Yeah, truly. Like it's wild to like look at that, and like you watch this movie and you think about The Wizard of Oz, and that feels like a millennia apart. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, that's the difference between like
That's
The Matrix and the Avengers.
Yeah,
like
that's
it's really
12 years
it's
later.
12 years. It's really not that
Wow.
big.
Yeah. Well, it also just is shocking to me to recall that The Matrix and the Avengers are 12 years apart. I go, The Matrix is
I mean,
before
technically
me,
13,
though. Matrix is before
Yeah.
me, though, so it has to be a really old movie.
pre-Max, as we
Pre-Max.
all
As
Yeah.
we all use.
yeah.
Uh,
1200
also-
BM before Max.
Max is also just called the HBO period.
Right, yes. That's how paleontologists refer to it.
Streaming service joke. Anyway,
Yeah,
Parker, if
photographer.
if you could stop doing such a good job on the episode, please.
God, I'm sorry.
We have to move on.
We have to move on. Yeah, the photographer stuff is very charming.
Very charming.
I think it's very funny and cute that it's one of, it's again, they're playing in broad strokes, that these country bumpkins don't realize that the statue isn't supposed to have
Yes.
heads or arms. And it's
Yeah.
just funny.
It's genuinely just a good little bit. It's not over the top. It's not as
Mm-hmm.
like broad as like slapstick. It's just kind of like, it feels real. And I think
Yeah.
that's what makes this movie hold up so well, is that specifically the photographer, and then we get to the fair, obviously, and the fair, the carnival's like, oh my God.
Crazy.
But it starts here where you really are like, oh, this really could happen anywhere. Where it's like, even through all like the financial problems and like the stressors of the relationship and like maybe wanting to see other people, all it really takes is like doing a bit at a location away from your house to feel like everything's okay again.
Totally.
know?
Like that whole bit that they have there is just so real. Like you're talking about, like, all of us have had an experience with a significant other of just like goofing around in public and embarrassing each other and then being like, oh shit, like we got to get out of here. Like, oh, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so real. I mean, it's a song of two humans to the truest extent. Like, that is relatable.
Mm-hmm.
But the carnival, I would say.
Man.
I mean, the carnival. What are your feelings about the carnival, Parker?
How
did it make you feel?
It's just, it's so interesting because the first thing I noticed when they got into the city on the trolley is it doesn't look like the city he saw in the vision.
Mm-mm.
It just doesn't. Like, it's, it's square angles, it's buildings, it's artistic in its own ways. It's kind of expressionistic
but
in
it
some
feels like a real city.
Feels like a real city. The carnival is everything he imagined. The carnival is entirely a fantasy. And like that introductory tracking shot they have of just like the spinning wheel on the front of the building, that you get the scale of the people walking and you're like, oh, that thing has to be 6 stories tall and wide. Like, this thing is massive and it's just spinning and everybody's going in and we push in and we do a dissolve until we're into a real set. And then people are walking in 2 queues going inwards, and the camera tracks over the fence and through the queues and then stops at the entrance where you see the Ferris wheel and the spinning rocket rides.
I love the roller coaster that goes. It's so... Oh.
Yeah, it is a magic trick. And like...
It really is.
That's something else. Like, it was something you were talking about earlier with the commentator, saying he's like, I don't know how he did this, but like, here's my thoughts on it. That's something that Hollywood used to do a lot more that like doesn't exist in the advent of the internet. Of trade secrets were a thing. Like, there's a, like, notably the guy who did the makeup effects for like the John Barrymore Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde has this really incredible in-camera transformation where he looks in the mirror and then suddenly like bags show up on his eyes and all these lines. And there's interview clips of him in the 70s and people are like, how did you do that effect? He's like, I'm not going to tell. Yeah. And eventually we found out, right? But like,
it's the red and blue, right?
It's the red and blue filter. And, he talked about that like on his deathbed. He's like, oh, I stole that from Ben-Hur or whatever. But like, that used to be the culture of filmmaking was that you were magicians, and a magician never reveals his secrets.
Well, and it kind of feels like that switch happens in kind of the 80s. I feel like it feels kind of like Spielberg and Lucas, particularly Lucas, it feels like, are kind of like the guys who are like, we're giving you guys the keys to the kingdom as well. Like, we're letting you peek behind the curtain a little bit. We're going to show you a little bit of like, here's how we did Star Wars. Here's how we do this. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but that feels right to me of like...
Totally.
80s as like home video becomes a thing, and like Steven Spielberg becomes like the director. Like anytime anyone's like talking about a director, it's like that's who that is.
Totally.
It feels like that's kind of where that, not even like with the advent of new Hollywood, it feels like it arrives kind of with the blockbuster scene almost.
Very much so. Yeah. Which is just, it's fascinating because again, you look at this stuff and it is just, it's the most incredible visual marvels you've ever seen. And you're watching this and you're like, all of this is done in camera. All of this is models and forced perspective and like made with plywood and little string lights and copper connectors. Yeah. And it looks incredible. It's just, just that push-in shot is maybe the greatest shot in the movie to me. It's just astounding.
Yeah. It's magic for sure. They're playing some games. Pig gets out. Pig gets
the pig
drunk.
Slide.
There's a
drunk pig.
They're playing the pig slide.
Oh man, Dad bet the farm on the pig slides. Oh no. Oh god.
We never should have come to undisclosed city.
It's such a strange game. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, okay, so you throw the ball, you hit the target, that opens the gate, the pig comes out the gate, goes down the slide, then they go back inside and do it again?
I mean, I guess it's basically skee ball.
I suppose, yeah.
Except that for a brief time, your ball is a pig.
Sure.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. But yeah, pig gets out, drunk pig.
Drunk pig. Which he saves the drunk pig.
Yeah, and I was watching, and I was like, I knew from the get-go, I was like, okay, it's a 20s film. I shouldn't have too high of expectations here. Yeah, 100% that pig is just drunk. Like, he's got his little wobbly legs.
Genuinely drunk, for real.
Yeah.
And everyone at my screening laughed in late February, and I was like, that pig's drunk, for real.
That pig's drunk, and he didn't consent to that.
He doesn't know he's in a movie.
He doesn't know. Yeah, drunk pig.
There's a fun little, like, shot of, like, from the bottle's perspective.
Yeah.
It's like nuts. George O'Brien as the man saves the pig, and as a reward, they're going to play the peasant song.
Yeah, they're like, oh, these people are poor.
Let's play the poor people song. Which, genuinely, the commentator on the commentary track was like, no, this is a scene I don't entirely know what he's trying to say. Is it this? And I was kind of like, maybe they're just having fun. I was like, maybe it's actually just really fun that they're doing a little dance right now.
Maybe they're just having a good time.
I think it's really fun. Even though it does feel like the city people are like, you're poor? We'll play the poor people song. And I like that he's like, I don't want to dance to the poor people song. And she's like, come on, it'll be fun.
Come on.
They dance. And then we just get like the most extended comedy bit for so long. And it makes me laugh every time. But there's a woman who's dressed. The sleeve strap keeps falling off her shoulder.
Because she keeps clapping.
Yeah, she keeps clapping. And this man next to her, this absolute queen next to her, he's like fixing it for her. And she's like, oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And then every time she claps, it falls again. And he's so preoccupied with fixing her dress. He's like a prude. And he's like, immodest. It goes on for so long.
It just keeps cutting back to them.
Cutting back to it. It's so fun. It's like
it is a slapstick, like, you know, it's just a 20s silent film gag. Like it seems entirely within like the Keystone Cops.
And yet it worked so well with the audience I saw this in the theater with.
Yeah.
That I'm like, can't beat it, I guess.
It works.
I guess it's
just
inherently funny forever.
Yeah.
Is watching this man try to get this girl's dress, fixed. It's great. It's a good time. They have a great time dancing. They get to eat for a little bit. They,
Yep.
they have like the humor of like, I do love that he's like, I don't have the money. And then she's like, I have the money.
I've got the money. Yep.
A nice little, you're like, oh, wow.
Progressive.
Yeah, back then they were like, women can have money. And now I go, women could have money back then? I go, oh, I didn't
Also,
know.
I think it's a very cute little detail that she got a glass of water for her flowers from earlier,
Yes.
and then she takes them with her.
Ugh,
It's
yeah.
like very nice.
It's very cute.
Yeah.
They leave.
They leave.
They get back on the boat. They see
Like,
some
hey, second
people-
honeymoon time. Let's go.
Second
Let's go.
honeymoon time.
Moonlight
Let's
sail.
go. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
They're sailing. They pass some people on a little island. I'm so fascinated by those people. It is the thing that I feel like we've talked about. I mean, it comes up a lot with Spirited Away, where like
Mhm.
there's so much in that movie where I'm just like, who are those people? What
Yeah.
do they do? Like the shadow people on the train. I'm like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you do? What's your thing? Or like the little snack bar in Brief Encounter. I go,
Totally.
that's a real place,
Yeah.
and I need to go there.
I must
And
go.
these people on this little island have that same feeling to me, where it's just a little detail in a movie that just absolutely captures my imagination, where I'm
Yeah.
just like, I can hang out with those guys for a little. You
Yeah,
guys
what's
should
going
hang
on
out with
there?
them. Like, it's the same
Is it an
sensation
I-
of like, it's
No, go ahead,
what
please.
open world games chase constantly, is this feeling of
mhm.
exploration. And I love it when a movie provides me with I mean, it's the sensation of like, this is a real place.
Yeah.
And like Spirited Away, Brief Encounter, and Sunrise, for some reason, I'm bringing up those three as examples. But it's just a nice little detail where I'm like, those people are also alive in this world.
Mhm.
In this weird expressionistic world, more than anybody, those people dancing around a fire, I'm just
Yeah.
like, anyway.
Yeah.
Little shout
It's
out
really
to those
nice.
people.
I couldn't tell. I was trying to figure out if it was an island or just like a giant barge or a
Yeah.
raft of some kind.
Yeah.
Like I can't. It doesn't linger long enough for us to
No.
know. But like, yeah, it's a very nice flavor. It's nice
It is.
texture.
I give them a little wave. Then the wind picks up. I love the cut back to the city.
Yeah. So, because of my nerd ass, when that happens, it is almost pitch for pitch the sound effect used in like, there's an old Disney cartoon called like The Old Mill, and like if you watch any like classic Mickey Mouse cartoons, it's just that wind sound effect, the
Yes.
like hyper specific, and I just hadn't seen it in live action before, and I was like, what are you doing here?
It's Castle Thunder, Parker.
It's Castle Thunder.
It's Castle Thunder from
Castle
Frankenstein.
Thunder.
Castle Thunder. My good friend Castle Thunder.
Friend of the
that's
pod.
Great. Friend of the pod, Castle Thunder. We gotta get her on.
We gotta get her on.
That's great. So yeah, the wind blows in. The cartoon wind blows in.
Mhm.
The city gets messed up.
Yeah.
Like everyone's having a terrible time. The ocean gets really choppy.
Yeah.
She's asleep for
She
a good
sleeps
amount
through
of
it
time.
for a
She
big
sleeps through
chunk
a
of this.
Good chunk of it, which is impressive.
Yeah.
George O'Brien's fighting for his life, and she like wakes up. She's like,
She's
"Oh
like,
no!"
Oh, what?
I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's been a while."
It's been a minute, honey.
Boat capsizes.
Mm-hmm.
They're parted.
Yep.
Water. He washes up on shore. I think this is so haunting when he gets up and he shouts her name, and the horn
Yeah.
that plays that is his voice, I think is so effective and so scary and so lonely. Like, it just works. Like, I'm just like, yeah, that's really good. He's calling for her. He calls for help. The town wakes up. The woman from the city's like,
It happened.
It happened. He did it. And they all go out on a big search. I love the shot of coming in as the boats get closer to the camera and like all the men on the boats. I mean, it's really, I mean, talk about, Murnau kind of being a horror director. It feels like this is kind of a bookend to the horror elements in a different way, but it is just kind of like seeking the monster almost. Just to say the corpse of this woman.
Yeah.
He thinks she's dead. He goes home. The woman from the city comes around.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to kill her, which once again cements this is a violent man. Womp
Right.
womp.
Womp womp.
Not great.
But again, to Murnau's horror credit, she whistles, and the shot of him slowly raising his head from the bed, horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, so scary.
Yeah, so scary. I also have the thing where I'd seen it before, but when I saw it in the theater, I was like, and she dies.
Yeah.
Like, I was like,
Yeah.
Did you think she was dead?
Totally. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, she totally is gonna die.
They have that interesting cut back to her body drifting with the bulrushes and everything, and it almost feels like it's saying that she's dead.
Yeah.
It feels like it's keying the audience in, which I think is an interesting
Totally.
choice. He's in the middle of strangling this woman when someone's like, "Hey, wait."
Also,
And
it's one of those. It's the side effect of silent film cameras running at like 18 frames a second that struggles and strangling inherently look just kind of funny. There's just a choppiness to it, and like her arm like going in and out. Like
it looks like Homer strangling.
It really kind of does. Yeah.
But they go, "Hey, wait."
Wait.
He's like,
Hmm?
wait. And they're like, "We think we found her."
Yep.
And then we get another weird little bit with this old man on a bench.
Yep.
Right? What exactly does he do even? I can't even...
He like the maid like gives him a hug and like a kiss on the forehead or something. And he like leans in, is like seeing if he can get one on like the cheek or whatever. Yeah. And she's like, fresh, you know?
Yeah. Just classic 20s humor. It's fine. It's there.
Yeah.
They find her, they bring her in. Their reunion, her hair looks normal.
Yep.
For once. And that is to say it's covered in salt water. But it looks real. And they kiss and sunrise. Sunrises. Gorgeous.
Woman of the city goes back on her little...
Oh yeah, she goes back on the cart. She goes, harumph.
Harumph.
I'll get you again. I'll get you next time. Yep. Yeah. Would have gotten away with it too. That's Sunrise, Parker.
Yeah.
Good movie. Yeah. Let's see. Well, I look for any thoughts. Do you have any other thoughts on the movie?
No, like I think that basically covers it for me. That's got all of the bases covered. Yeah, just visually stunning.
Yeah.
Super well directed, super well performed. Like just all the performances across the board are really good, and like is also again interesting, like we were talking about, like context of, you know, film history, is just these actors all went on to do other things. Like Janet Gaynor is the original A Star Is Born, and like just had a very successful career, and it's like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Silent performers didn't all die out in some sort of extinction event.
Right. Which it kind of feels that way sometimes.
It feels like the first sound was really loud and wiped out everyone who was in a silent film, and then the sound people came in and were like, we're actually immune to this.
That was the other thing, is that it works in like the vision sequence down at the marsh, but one mental note I had about the movie is I was like, yes, this is before we figure out how to properly like fade in and out of different pieces of audio, because the carnival gets a bit overwhelming sometimes, where it's like 4 pieces of music playing at the same time. You're just like, oh, okay. Just hadn't quite figured out that slider yet.
Yeah, you're right, Parker. These guys are terrible at their job.
Yeah, they're really bad at their jobs.
It's really good. You guys should figure that out, though. Like, you guys should use, like, Pro... You guys heard of Logic Pro?
Yeah.
You guys should use Logic. You have a SoundCloud?
You have your soundboard?
Good movie, though.
Good movie.
Should we jump right into criteria?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. Historical and technical relevance.
I think it gives Kane a run for its money.
I think we can give Sunrise a point here, genuinely.
I think so.
I mean, reading its list of laurels at the top of this, it's I feel like it's earned its point over Kane. You know,
I'd agree.
And a major step toward sync sound, I feel, as well. And I feel that. I don't know that. It's just how I feel.
Yeah.
To all my haters out there, who I hear from often.
Obviously.
Okay, how well is it doing what it's trying to do?
You know,
we had our
really
big conversation.
We had our big conversation. I think I can let it lie there. But I think what it is trying to do it is doing well. I don't think it's doing it perfectly for my own personal tastes, but again, look at the laurels it's gotten. Look at where it lands on lists. Like, I'm clearly in the minority for not having this work 100% for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think you make fair points. I think it's just a matter of like, are you someone who you go, yeah, all right, I can look past that, or is it something that genuinely bumps up with you,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's wrong for that. I think it's doing what it's trying to do really well. I think, like you said, I think it's almost doing the first part of the movie too well for its own good.
Totally.
Because it's almost like, wow, he's a really scary guy.
He's really scary. You made him very, very scary.
Yeah, but for the reasons that I outlined earlier, I feel I can give the point to Sunrise.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I feel it's, it's impressive that Sunrise has stuck around for as long as it has and has stayed as relevant in film circles. But I genuinely do think, as I saw in that theater, this community that I'm in, basically, of people, the fact that they came in, they watched a silent film for an hour and a half, and they went, they clapped at the end. I mean, that's something. I think that is totally something. I think that this is a movie that holds up in the same way that Citizen Kane does.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And I think that the thing that this has over Kane, in a sense, is that just by nature of its subject matter and what it's trying to do, it's a lot more accessible to people than Kane might be.
Totally.
At least from the audience I saw this with. I mean, I would love it if that theater showed Citizen Kane so I could see, local rural people from Utah react to Citizen Kane. I would be so curious. Yeah, I think I give the point to Sunrise here as well. And did you like it? Is this something that you would revisit ever?
Absolutely. I'd revisit this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty easy watch, all things considered.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you land on it then with that final piece of criteria?
I think this is not a slight against Kane, which is gorgeous to look at in its own rights, but like, this is just kind of dazzling on a visual level that like just lands with me a little bit better.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Is this the clean sweep then?
I think so.
Okay. Wow. Taking a step back. Is Sunrise better than Citizen Kane?
It's one of those things that like Citizen Kane is so known for its script. And this is, the story credit is scenario by, right? Like it is very broad in those strokes. And so in one sense, like you look at it and you could make the argument that's like, well, they're trying to do very different things. And so they're hard to compare, but like, it's rare that we look at something that is pre-Kane. It's a lot of post-Kane. And I think you can see pieces of this in Citizen Kane. I think there's an argument to be made that like Murnau stylings are influential on Orson Welles.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that for sure. I think especially there's something very, especially the montages in this, like especially the montages in this just feel like, it feels like it has to have influenced a lot of approaches to just montage making in general. Although, maybe there's Montage the movie that came out in 1919 and we just haven't talked about it yet. But
that's Battleship Potemkin. That's just... I thought you were doing a bit. I was like, Max, that's the Montage the movie exists.
I forgot. That could be the next silent we watch for sure. That'd be it. Battleship Potemkin. Man, talk about a movie that when that's in someone's favorites, I just go, okay, you like the craft of movie making.
Truly, like that, and like Man with a Movie Camera. I'm like, okay, pal, relax.
I go, okay, we get it. You like editing. You think that cinema's a miracle. Get in line, buddy. What's your real favorite?
Take a number.
It's Caddyshack, isn't it? That's your real favorite, but you want to put Battleship Potemkin
you want to put
instead.
Battleship Potemkin.
Michael Mann ass. I'm pretty sure that's Michael Mann's 4 favorites.
Yeah, I can see it.
Pretty sure it might genuinely be. Oh man, montage of the movie, good.
Yeah. So take it a step back. What do you think?
Step back. I think Sunrise is better than Citizen Kane.
I think it is too. I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
There. Yeah, I think we got it.
Another one. Citizen Kane continues to fall further and further on our ranking
Just
of movies.
slipping down the list, baby.
It's gonna be 40 by the end of this. Great. Well, that was a good. I'm very happy with the conversation we had. That was very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to watch this. I'm glad you hadn't seen it before.
I'm glad you introduced this to me.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good time to introduce a movie to Parker. It's a rare treat, I should say. And it's next time we'll both be watching something for the first time, which is Andrei Tarkovsky's 1979 Stalker.
Yes.
Which I haven't seen. You haven't seen. Have you? You haven't seen any Tarkovsky, right? He's a blind spot for you.
He's like, it's one of those things of like, I've seen him out of context. I've seen so many scenes. I've seen so many, like, we've watched stuff in film classes. I have not sat down and watched one beginning to end yet.
Okay. And I have seen Mirror and Solaris. And I really liked Solaris, and Mirror is just one of those movies where I go, yeah, okay.
I firmly believe that, like, and this is not a slight against Mirror. I know nothing about Mirror. I just know, like, it feels like Mirror's entire modern reputation has been built on the backs of the Cinefix movie channel, I think. Like, those guys have put in the work to get that movie on everybody's radar.
That's true.
It's their baby. Yeah. It's their pet project.
Yeah. Mirror's just one of those things where it's like it'll be an Instagram account that's like, movies, you must see movies that will change your life. And then there's like mirrors usually there, and they go, I don't know if that's Instagram rec material, guys. Like, I know
that's a tough sell.
Like, I just feel like I would just be worried that someone who's not ready for Mirror would stumble on that and go, okay. But then again, maybe it would change their life.
You never know.
You never know. Well, anyway, I'm excited for both of us to enter Stalker blind and to have things to say about it. So everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.